You just received an IRS notice in the mail. If you're like anyone, your stomach drops, your mind races through every tax return you've ever filed, every deduction you've ever claimed. And here's what most people don't understand: the outcome of your audit isn't determined in that meeting with the IRS agent. It's determined oftentimes in the weeks before by how strategically you prepare. I'm Andrew Bosserman, tax attorney with Boss Tax Law. I defend taxpayers before the IRS. I'm a former IRS agent, and I've been on both sides of the audit table. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to prepare for an IRS audit so you can walk into that meeting with the agent with confidence instead of fear. There's a quote I like that's attributed to Abraham Lincoln. He said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." That's exactly how you should think about an IRS audit. The actual meeting with the agent might last an hour, 2 hours. It could potentially last up to a day. But the preparation, that's where the case is won or lost. When I was an IRS agent, I could immediately tell the people and the difference between taxpayers who prepared strategically and those who just showed up hoping for the best and that the government would give them the benefit of the doubt. The prepared ones had organized documentation, clear explanations, and knew exactly what the agent needed. The unprepared ones, on the other hand, they were scrambling through shoeboxes of receipts, couldn't explain their own deductions, and often made things worse by volunteering information that opened up new issues. So let's talk about how to be in that first group of prepared taxpayers. First, you need to understand exactly what the IRS is examining and why. The audit notice isn't just a scary letter, it's also a roadmap. It tells you the specific items under examination, what documents they're requesting, and the deadline for response. Make sure you read it carefully. Are they looking at your business expenses, charitable contributions, a specific schedule on your return? The scope of their inquiry tells you exactly where to focus your preparation. And here's something most people don't know. Audit selection usually isn't random. There's usually a return or a reason your tax return was flagged. Maybe your deductions were unusually high for your income level. Maybe there was a mismatch between what you reported and what third parties reported to the IRS. But understanding this helps you anticipate the agent's concerns before you ever sit down with them. Now, step 2, and here's where the real work comes: documentation. For every item under audit, you need records that prove your position. Contemporaneous records are often best because those are records created at the time of the transaction, and you should have those for most items, and those carry far more weight than reconstructed records that you put together after getting the IRS notice, although those are allowed in some situations. If they're examining business expenses, you need receipts, invoices, bank statements, credit card statements, but more than that, you also need to show the business purpose. Why was this expense necessary, and how did it relate to generating income? For vehicle deductions, do you have a mileage log? For home office deductions, do you have measurements and calculations showing exclusive business use and the percent of your home you used? For charitable contributions over certain amounts, do you have written acknowledgments from the charity? Here's the key: don't just gather documents, organize them. Create a clear index, put everything in logical order according to their document request, and when the agent asks for documentation of a specific expense, you should be able to hand them exactly what they need within seconds. This organization accomplishes 2 critical things. First, it shows the agent you're serious and credible. Second, it keeps the audit focused and efficient. The longer an audit drags on, the more opportunity for the agent to expand the scope and find other issues you weren't prepared for. Now we're at step 3, and this is where most people fall short. They gather their documents, but never actually review them. Before you meet with the IRS, you should know your documents better than the agent does. Review every receipt, every statement, every record. Make sure they actually support your position. Sometimes you'll find problems. Maybe a deduction you claimed isn't fully supported by your records. Maybe there's a math error on your return. It's better to discover this now, before the meeting, than to have the agent point it out during their meeting. If you find issues, you have options. You might be able to locate additional documentation. You might need to concede certain items strategically, but at least you're making informed decisions from a position of knowledge and not getting blindsided by something you didn't know. Also, this works both ways. Look for potential weaknesses in the IRS's position. Maybe the law actually supports a deduction they're questioning. Maybe there is a relevant court case or IRS guidance in your favor. And this is where having professional help can make a real difference. Finally, step 4, how you communicate with the IRS agent can make or break your audit. And this isn't something a lot of people think about. But my first rule is to be professional and courteous. The agent is just doing their job. Being hostile or defensive creates an adversarial dynamic that doesn't help you. Rule number 2, answer the question that was asked by the agent. Nothing more. This is huge. Taxpayers often hurt themselves by volunteering additional information. The agent asks about your business expenses, business travel expenses, and suddenly you're telling them about your home office, your vehicle, and the side business that you didn't report. Just like the court TV shows on TV, treat the interview, if you go to it, although I recommend having a professional represent you, make sure you answer only what they ask and don't volunteer additional information. Listen to the question, answer it directly and completely, then stop talking. Don't fill the silence. Third rule, if you don't know the answer, say so. Don't guess, don't speculate. Tell the agent you'll need to check your records and get back to them. A wrong answer is worse than no answer, and the IRS will often remember when you give them incorrect information. And finally, step number 5. Not every audit requires professional representation. Simple correspondence audits where the IRS just wants to verify a few items can sometimes be handled on your own. But there are many situations where professional help isn't just useful, it's essential to getting a good result. If the amounts at stake are significant, or if the legal issues are complex, if you're facing potential fraud penalties, or if you're just uncomfortable dealing with the IRS or understanding your taxes, get professional help. A qualified tax professional brings expertise you don't have. They know what arguments work with the IRS and which ones don't. They understand IRS procedures and can navigate the bureaucracy. They can communicate with the agent so you don't have to. And they can often achieve outcomes you couldn't achieve on your own. Think of it like this. You wouldn't represent yourself in a lawsuit involving hundreds of thousands of dollars. And an IRS audit can often have financial consequences just as significant. So in closing, let me bring this back to where we started. The outcome of your IRS audit isn't determined in that meeting room. It's determined by your preparation. Understand what's being examined. Gather and organize your documentation. Review everything thoroughly. Communicate strategically. And know when to get professional help. When you do these things, you transform from a nervous taxpayer hoping for the best into a prepared professional who controls the narrative of their own audit. If you're facing an IRS audit and want strategic guidance from someone who's been on both sides of the table, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to discuss your situation to see how I can help. But thanks so much for watching. If this was helpful, please subscribe and I will see you in the next video.